I'm recording this video in 2024, and this is an election year here in United States. And so we must talk about public relations in the context of governments and politics. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and then we can get started. Okay. So any government organization, the role of this government organization is to serve the public good. We already know that. Now, when you work in a public relations field within a government organization, your goal would be to share information, to distribute information, and it could be at the federal level, at the state level, or at the city level. Your goal would be to share information. If you work in government PR for a long time, you would be called a PR specialist. Now, what is the role of a PR specialist? If you were to work in this field, you need to promote the policies of the administration that you are serving. You also have to seek support of the people that you are serving, right? None of this stuff is cheap. You have to assist with fundraising, so you can do more marketing and PR to seek that support to promote those policies. You have to share what are all the great things that this organization, this government organization has done. What are all the great things that this administration that you're serving has done? Because you want the same folks to get reelected. Anyway, that's the goal for the administration, to continue staying in power and to continue to push those policies. And so your job would be to help them make that happen. If there is a crisis where you feel that maybe that organization did not do something well and the citizens are really upset about it, well, you've got to appease them, right? So you've got to work toward that as well. And if there are any social media campaigns that focus on the social good, that focus on social impact, things that the administration may have done to help people that they're serving, they definitely want to share that out and talk about it and promote the fact that they are good at what they do. They're good at their job. So this is the kind of stuff that you would be working on if you were to work in the government as a PR professional. Okay, let's move on to talk about public affairs. So at the federal government level, you have the Congress and you also have federal agencies. So within the Congress, there's the House of Representatives and the Senate, and then you have federal agencies that also work along with the Congress. Okay, so let's talk about public relations at the federal level. Now, if you were to work at the federal level in the public relations department or in any public relations role, know that each member of the Congress has a press secretary for media relations. So each of these members would require someone to help them share their message, to connect with the media, to build those relationships so that they can continue sharing messages. And so you may be a press secretary for media relations, and or you may be an assistant to the press secretary when you begin. Okay, the president of the United States also has a press secretary, as would all heads of state anywhere in the world, right? So we have a press secretary right here who serves the president. The president's secretary has to be very assertive. This is the person that you often see in a briefing. You see them on TV sharing all the messages that the administration has to share with the media so that they get published and more people would get to know about it. And so this person is very strategic, very assertive, and important role that is announced when the president takes office, and sometimes they get burned out, so more people get added on to that role, and that there could be multiple press secretaries over the tenure of the president's um, you know tenure in office. And their job is to share information. All specialists, all press secretaries, and their offices of press secretaries tend to share information. They're arranging interviews, uh, sharing any kind of press releases, any new information, any statements that need to be released. All of that stuff is done by these folks. They may create emails, they may create videos. You may have seen Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris has a social media account where she shares important messages. It's actually the press secretary who's doing it for her, right? So that's the job of a press secretary at the federal level. And you may have seen some of these faces. If you follow U.S. politics, Karine Jean-Pierre, the lady in this bright fluorescent pink, she's the one right now who is the press secretary in 2024. This is Jen Psaki. There is Kelly. There's Sarah Sanders, who was a part of another administration, the Trump administration. There was Sean Spicer, that he was pretty newsworthy a lot of times. This is John Ernest, who was with President Obama. So these are popular people. They end up, like Sanders, I think, is now is running for some kind of governor role. I mean, they know enough about the administration. They spend a lot of time. They're in the, deep, with all of this stuff. And they're really clever folks. And they all have a public relations background. I mean, that's what, they do, or they've learned that on the job. But that's their job of sharing information, representing the office of the Congress member or of the president. Okay, let's talk about the second one, which is the federal agencies. We just talked about Congress. So federal agencies, where you're asking, if you're asking yourself, well, what are federal agencies? You can see some of these logos here, and that would help you understand. So the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, or the Department of State, or the intelligence, like CIA, right? Or the Department of Army, or Air Force, or Navy. All of these are called federal agencies. So each of these have their own marketing and public relations department. And let's kind of get into that a little bit. Okay, so the folks who are working in those federal agencies, we call them PAOs, or Public Affairs Officers. Okay, so their goal, again, definitely the same. It is sharing information, answering press inquiries, writing those press releases. Sometimes they have to write speeches for the head of CIA, for example. These guys write the speeches. They get approved by the head of CIA eventually. Then the head would deliver those speeches. But often the starting point is the public affairs officers. That's where it all kind of starts. If there are any special events of the award ceremony, they handle all of that stuff as well. So sometimes there are agencies, public relations agencies, that have federal agencies as their clients. And so if you're working in one of those agencies, you get to work on these accounts. Or if you want to be really close to the action, then you actually want to be in one of these federal agencies, and eventually make your way up to being a PAO. Any kind of crisis communication, crisis management stuff. There are specialized firms who handle politics and government outside of the federal agencies, and you could work with them, or you could be internal and find ways to be really close to the action and to learn some of this stuff as well. So that's public relations in federal agencies. And one term to remember is the acronym APAO, Public Affairs Officers. Okay, so here you can see a public affairs officer who has been, they're employed by either the Navy or military or Air Force, right? And they're in their uniforms, and their focus is a little bit very, specific. If they're focusing on defense, then they're doing news releases that are connected to that defense. And if they have to be on the field, then they're on the field, live action and things like that. So sometimes they're on their ship along with all the other Navy folks, and they're reporting from there. They're trying to connect with the media from being live on the field. So it's a really interesting job. It's an intense job. I had a student once that had a mom for a PAO. She was in the Navy for many years, and it was really interesting to hear from her perspective the work that she did. And I feel like it's intense, and it's a very different from like a celebrity PR kind of job or a corporate PR kind of job, but it does have some very similar overlapping elements in terms of putting together a press release and distributing information and putting together events and sharing little media tidbits and things like that and writing speeches. So in that sense, it's all kind of similar. Okay, let's move on to the state. So we've just talked about federal, and now we're switching gears and we're talking about state government. Now, state government also has public relations specialists on board, and let's talk about what they do. So state governments, one of their need is that they want people to come to their state and live in their state and invest in their state. So for example, you're seeing California here. Visit California is a campaign that California has, and it has some very interesting ads and a lot of different kinds of promotions also, which are more PR focused that they do to invite people to come live in their state and do business in their state. Because there are so many startups here, and we give a lot of financing, and we make it easy and all of that stuff, right? So attracting businesses, attracting residents, and inviting people to enjoy the state in terms of travel and tourism. These are the kind of things that you would be working on if you were to be a PR person for the state of California or any state in the US or anywhere else in the world. So that's the kind of goal, they're obviously the eventual objective for the state is to make money, to be economically superior, to be well developed. And the only way some of that stuff can happen is to bring people into the state. And so you started to see a lot of it during COVID, where people were moving to Austin, right? And Texas was working hard to bring people to them. And a lot of that stuff happens like sort of behind the scenes, so you don't see it. But, there was clearly a movement, and there continues to be from California to other parts of the country because it's cheaper, and it's as warm, and we've got lots of companies here. Jobs are plentiful. Rent, well, it's very cheap to live here. It's very cheap to buy here. There are no earthquakes. All of that kind of stuff is being promoted at the back end, which you basically see a lot of campaigning and influence that is being directed toward us by PR professionals who work with the state of Texas. Okay, so it's interesting work. If that's something you're interested in, think about it. Okay, and then let's talk finally about local governments. So I live in the city called Manhattan Beach, which is in the South Bay area of Los Angeles, and they do a lot of stuff at the city level to get people excited about their city. Real estate is not cheap, but they talk about great schools and great police force and great blah blah blah, and they just kind of invite people to consider moving to a city like this or visiting and spending some time here and spending money and supporting local businesses and things like that. So it's smoke free, it's very family friendly, all of the kind of things that they need to do I often share things that are a sunset that I may have captured, on the Strand. And they retweet that stuff and they like share it out and add it to their stories and things like that. So they follow me as much as I follow them, because every local government needs those influencers, needs those people talking about great stuff about their city. And so that's one of the jobs that a PR professional would do. And also you have to inform residents of all the things. So the PR professionals are also at the police, level. So the cops have one person who is in charge of all their social media, and they talk about how we keep the city safe. And if you ever need us, just call us, all of that stuff, or, everything that would make residents feel comfortable and tourists feel comfortable, in that city. That's the kind of stuff that PR professionals who work for those cities would be talking about. Okay. Um, all right. And so um, we've talked about federal, state, and city. But also let's talk about a little bit about big corporations. And, we will get a lot more deeper when I have an exclusive conversation on just corporations and organizational public relations. But I just wanted to kind of allude at it here that all these big corporations have to stay connected with the government, right? Um, if I want the government to be comfortable with, the level of chemicals that I put in my food or preservatives that I put in my food, then I need somebody in my company to be connected with government officials that make these rules, right? So business and governments often work together, and if the governments are making certain rules, and you just want to make sure that they're inclusive of the kind of stuff that you are doing at your corporation, that they are not going to now just change all the rules on you, and now you may have to pay more taxes, or you can't use certain ingredients, or you can't advertise in a specific way. So for us, everyone to work together, there are people who are a part of big organizations like Nestle, like Kellogg's, like Apple, people who are, focused on connecting with government officials, um, and building those relationships with them. So that's what this particular slide is about. There are associations, groups of people who come together from different organizations, like Apple, who would care about export and import duties, and like Kellogg's, who would care about food safety, or these different organizations, and people would come together and work on mutually beneficial projects. So it's an association of people who work in corporations, but focus specifically on government relations. So there is a job like that, just focused on government relations. They write position papers, get them published, try to meet with officials. Well, they ask each other, like, do you know this person? Do you know that guy? Like, can you get me in touch with him? I need to talk to him. So it is a lot of lobbying, public policy, right, related work that these guys would do. And they come together, and that's what makes a difference to get their point across, and make sure that their voices are heard. Okay, so that's government relations by corporations. And then I want to introduce you to this particular concept called lobbying, and what a lobbyist does. Um, well, there are lobbyists in every area of government. And what is their job? Their job is to influence. Okay, so they can't bribe anyone, right? That's wrong. So how would you find ways to influence? Well, you build relationships. And most corporations would hire a lobbyist to influence lawmakers on specific things. Okay, so if there's a special interest group like education, or some kind of international affair or a business proposition or an import export for a specific category, let's say fish. Their job is to influence government officials, talk to them about what their client does and what the requirements are, and therefore what rules need to be slightly laxed so that they're able to conduct business. Okay, so that's kind of the idea of it. And, there are specific goals that each lobbyist work towards. Some of it is let's change the policy. Some of it could be, can you go a little easy on the taxes? It's too much. Um, and so they try to influence these government officials and these lawmakers. So when the lawmakers meet, and the Congress meets that, there are specific lawmakers who'd be willing to say, I vote for this, right? Because they've been influenced and they feel a need to speak up and because they feel like it makes sense, that some of these things are being requested. So all of lobbyists are registered with the Congress. Obviously, their clients is who they're working for, but they need to let the Congress know that this client has paid me to be here. Okay, they have to disclose, they have to tell us how much they're paid. It's pretty much public record. But that's their job. Their job is to influence and to sort of be that vehicle that connects. It's the bridge that connects the uh, the government officials and the client, which is the corporation. They're the messengers and they help influence all of these people. So that's the job of a lobbyist. And you see them in Washington, D.C., and they represent every industry, very many special interest groups, and they're all registered with the Congress. Okay, so I wanted to actually showcase to you what a lobbyist would do, right? And I have an example here, and I have a couple examples here for you to just understand this because it's hard to grasp what they do without just seeing some examples. Okay, so let's say um, this lobbyist is representing an interest group, which is the National Education Association, NEA, and the Alliance for Excellent Education, which is a policy organization. So I'm just really making this up, all right? And I don't know if any of this exists really, but I just wanted to share what this would look like. So let's say these interest groups are saying, we really want the government to fund our schools and our educational programs. So we need to find a way to campaign for more education funding. Okay, so the strategy and see how it's divided, goal, strategy, tactics, internalize that process in terms of how that works, because that works for all different public relation proposals and campaigns. Okay, so if the goal is for these interest groups, like we really want more funding to schools and educational programs, our strategy is we're going to find a way to influence policymakers. And so the tactics, the nuts and bolts of the campaign would be, for example, let's make sure that all the parents and teachers and students, they all collaborate and advocate, the need for more funding, right? And how are we going to do it through like grassroots movements? Maybe we do through email and letter campaigns, like people need to sign stuff, right? We could do one of that. We could also, as another tactic, present stories and testimonials of why this is required and when it's funded, what are the positive outcomes, that take place. And we can also do another third tactic where we can actually go directly and connect with lawmakers and, find as lobbyists, we could do that kind of stuff. And we discuss why for the society's benefit, we really need that extra funding. So that's kind of the work that a lobbyist would do, right? It's a lot of engagement, a lot of communication, it's a lot of mobilization. And in many ways, it's about connecting with lawmakers to make something heard, right? Be that voice. And of course, they've got to disclose, right? We are working with NEA and the Alliance for Excellent Education, and they are our clients. And, they've paid us to make sure that their voices are heard. Okay, so that's the idea of it. Similarly, let's look at this one. This is tech companies lobbying for immigration reform. This is another example of the same stuff that we're talking about. So let's say the interest group is TechNet, and it's a huge network of tech CEOs and senior executives. Now, these guys, they really want more workers from outside the country to come into the country. And these skilled workers are more qualified and cost a little bit less, right? So they're saying, we need to lobby for immigration reform at that federal level. And we want to convince these lawmakers that we need these skilled workers to come into our tech industry here in San Francisco, right? Now, these are all technology CEOs and senior executives, and they have their bottom lines that they're interested in, and that's what they're trying to find ways to bring people in who cost less and are as talented. So their strategy, so, we talked about the goal. What's their strategy? Their strategy is to influence lawmakers to support an immigration reform. So what are the different nuts and bolts of the campaign? What are the different ways we are going to influence the lawmakers to support immigration reform? And for that, let's talk about the tactics. Okay, so they're thinking, okay, we got to do some grassroots campaign, and we've got to build public support for immigration reform. We also want to sponsor some research studies which showcase that, when you bring in skilled immigrant workers from China and India and other Southeast Asian countries, for example, some Central American countries, for example, there's a big economic impact, and that helps the entire tech sector, right? So get some research studies done, sponsor those studies, get some information, have some data to showcase that. You can also collaborate with like-minded organizations, like other organizations like TechNet, to amplify the message and to influence key decision makers who will then eventually influence lawmakers as well. So same thing, lobbyists, that's their job, that's what they do, and they would have to disclose to Washington, this is our client, this is TechNet, they represent a technology network, and they've paid us to do this work and to share their ways. Okay, so that's the idea of a lobbyist, and that's the kind of work that they do. All right, and then this is a election year, so we have to talk about this, right? There is a lot of fundraising that takes place, and public relation professionals are expected to help with fundraising. So it's kind of like a marketing job, like sharing information, building goodwill around the candidates, and they would do events. They would have to maybe get sponsorships for concerts and and games, sports games, and they would set up luncheons and little small little groups of women talking about what candidate they will pick, and all of that stuff. And of course, meeting people and doing little focus groups and having conversations about it and talking about how great your client is, right? Your candidate is. That's part of the job. And the fact that now there's internet and you can create videos and share those videos, like, it's just made life that much more richer, but also more work, right? So I wanted to give you an example of what that would look like before we close the chapter on this particular area on politics and government. So this scenario, let's look at the scenario. It's a candidate who's fundraising, and they have a gala event that they are going to set up. And it would be your job to do this entire thing. So if you were to work in this field, what kind of work would you be doing? Number one, you would be developing a narrative around how amazing this candidate is and how much this candidate has given to community service. You would also invite to this gala, you want to invite key reporters, right, to cover the event. And, we want the reporter to look at all the different policies that this candidate has proposed. You want to share that information with them. You want to say, well, for all this and for the candidate to win and for us to do all this stuff, like we need more money. And kind of emphasize that because this is a fundraising gala after all. You would need to put together a social media campaign. When I say campaign, it's multiple things that you would do, which has one key message. Okay, so if the message is around fundraising for a specific reason, you would create an entire social media campaign for that reason. Okay, so you got to create how you're going to do that. You could talk about like behind the scenes, what is the candidate doing, what are all the interviews, and you got to kind of share all that stuff. And the supporters are saying, this is such a great candidate. He's doing or she's doing some great work. I really support this idea. It's a fantastic idea. And all of those little sound bites, video bites have to be pulled together, really nicely put together and done based on a calendar, right? What to do when to release what, how to share it. Would it be a story? Would it be a reel? Would it be a live event? Would it be a Facebook post? Would it be an article? You have to decide what that would look like, and in what order, right? In terms of what's going to be most effective, what will get the most engagement and most support. Right? There's also influencer partnerships that people do. So there are popular, famous people, famous actors, for example, who support a specific candidate. And because they are already so famous and they already have a huge following, if they say something about the candidate, it's more likely that people would care about it and pick it up and things like that, right? So that is influencer partnerships. You got to find ways to get the mayor of a city or a governor or somebody to like amplify the reach of the event. Talk about this fundraising, talk about the importance of fundraising, talk about why this candidate has to win, right? That's the kind of stuff. And then you want people to come to the gala, so you want them to talk about that as well. Event branding is important. You've got to find a way to have similar colors, similar logos, so it's recognizable, right? Similar everything, right? So if you look at it and you say, oh yeah, this is this candidate's fundraising gala, right? Because I see the colors, I see the logo, I see the style, the look and feel, the design. It does look like a person, same person is posting all of this stuff, right? So uh, that kind of color scent is important. And even at the gala, the colors that you're using on the social media, on the website, should be also something that you would see at the gala. Maybe you have a step and repeat, little the banner that you put at the back with like logos and sponsorships or messages, right? You could do something like that. So when people take their photo in front of it, like the stuff that you want in the social media would show up there. And visually it's appealing, right? Every table would have the same kind of draping and the same kind of signage and things like that. And that makes it a visually appealing setup. And finally, once your event is over, you would have captured, hopefully, all the people who came, their email addresses, their phone numbers, and then you've got to put them in a system and send them a thank you note and make sure that they're added to every email on fundraising or on the candidate that goes out, right? So these are all the kinds of things that you would do if you are a PR person working on a fundraising campaign for your candidate. So this is all about public relations in politics and government. And in the next video, I'd like to talk about PR and law. So join me there. Thank you.